boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. Oh, it's funny. I'm doing part 45 on my last day of being 45, meaning part 46 will be on my first day of being 46. What kind of coinky dinkle kind of shit is that, man? That's just amazing, don't you think? Christmas Eve. What an interesting thing. You know, there was a video that used to make the rounds about Christmas. Eric Dubay that did it. And, I mean, you have to wonder what happened to Eric Dubay that scared him so much, scared him out of doing what he does. Because he doesn't seem to be around as much anymore. But he did a whole video about how Christmas was originally about taking mushrooms and how, you know, it was a family affair and the whole family would take mushrooms together and go on a trip. And I just wonder about that. Like, I wonder what that would do. Would that bring you and your children closer together? If you could share that experience, that like when you have it with you know, acquaintances or friends or people that come into your life at a later point in time, you know, you have these surreal, you know, life-altering experiences with these people, and you'll find yourself connected to people that you otherwise wouldn't be. So, is that something we should all be doing? And I'm definitely not suggesting doing it. You know, just throwing it out there, just questioning. You know, obviously you would never want to give your kids large amounts of anything. But, you know, like the Peruvian baths that they've discovered, where, you know, it's a bunch of basically bathtubs, but they're outside and they're all connected by, you know, pipes down at the bottom. So that if you were to fill one with, say, 4 inches of water, to get to that 4-inch level, you would have to fill all of them 4 inches, because water will always find its level, you know. And then you lay in these bathtubs and you go on your trip, and something about the water connecting each person while they're in their individual little, like, you know, what's interesting is that, at least according to the narrative we're given, that there hasn't been research into that. And so you have to ask yourself, like at the very least, shouldn't it be definitive? Shouldn't it be like don't do this because we know that this is actually bad for you? We've had adults do it, you know, not just, I'm not saying start with the families, but we've had multiple adults lay in these baths, take small amounts of psychedelics or whatever amount of mushrooms. Obviously I suggest the natural route, but and they went on these trips and it was a negative. Like, why don't we know that? And really, why not only do we not know that's the truth, the narratives that have come out surrounding that scenario are always good ones. That the people that do that or did that or practice this or whatever, that it's actually a really, really great experience, and, you know, it's very impactful. And it's not like there are a whole bunch of, there might be some people that went on bad trips and whatnot, And those are probably people dealing with some shit. Who knows? But it's not like anybody, you know, that does it goes, never, nobody. Even if they have a bad trip, they don't say, fucking hey, don't do that. The bad trip usually has them, you know, experience something phenomenal. Yes, sir. So really, it's weird. I mean, it's just like everything else. Everything falls into these same categories where you have to believe the chosen narrative that we're given and ignore all of these other little bits and pieces and narratives that come into play and seemingly make a lot of sense. But, you know, you're just supposed to ignore it. So, Christmas. Christmas is an annual festival commemorating the birth of Jesus Christ, observed primarily on December 25th as a religious and cultural celebration among billions of people around the world. A liturgical feast central to Christianity. Preparation for Christmas begins on the first Sunday of Advent. Advent, whatever that is. Never heard of Advent. Advent is a season observed in most Christian denominations as a time of waiting and preparation for both the celebration of Jesus' birth and at Christmas and the return of Christmas at the second coming. It begins on the fourth Sunday before Christmas, often referred to as Advent Sunday. Never heard of this. Advent is the beginning of the liturgical year. In Western Christianity, the name comes from Latin adventus, coming, arrival, translating the Greek parousia from the New Testament, originally referring to the second coming. Fucking weird and gross. Here's the picture that they show. Of course, it's a little boy. You know, a teenage boy. Gross. All right. The first Sunday of Advent, and it is followed by Christmastide. Christmastide? Which Christmastide, also known as Christide, is a season of the liturgical year in most Christian churches. For the Catholic Church, Lutheran Church, Anglican Church, Methodist Church, and some Orthodox churches, Christmastide begins December 24th at sunset, or Vespers, which is liturgically the beginning of Christmas Day. Sure gets a lot more chosen when you start looking into it. Sure seems like it's more along those chosen lines. Most of December 24th is thus not part of Christmastide, but of Advent, the season in the church year that precedes Christmastide. In many liturgical calendars, Christmastide is followed by the closely related season of Epiphanytide that commences at sunset on January 5th, a date known as 12th night. Isn't that the same as Hanukkah then? That seems kind of strange. In many Christian denominations, Christmastide is identical to 12-tide. There are several celebrations within Christmastide, including Christmas Day, St. Stephen's Day or Stephen's Day, Christmas or Childermas, December 28th, New Year's Eve, December 31st, the Feast of the Circumcision of Christ, or the Solemnity of Mary, the Feast of the Circumcision of Christ. That's fucking weird. Here, Circumcision of Christ, Menologian of Basil II, 979 to 984, because Christ and stuff, the whole Christ story isn't really mentioned until around 900. But that's the picture that they give us. So I'm telling you guys that your Christianity is all about the J's. Your Christmas is, so just listen. The feast of the circumcision of Christ, which just sounds gross, really, is a Christian celebration of the circumcision of Jesus in accordance with Jewish tradition. 8 days, according to the Semitic and Southern European calculation of intervals of days, after his birth, the occasion on which the child was formally given his name. The circumcision of Jesus has traditionally been seen as in the popular 14th century work The Golden Legend as the first time the blood of Christ was shed. Gross. And thus the beginning of the process of the redemption of man, and a demonstration that Christ is fully human and of his parents' obedience to biblical law. The feast day appears on January 1st in the liturgical calendar of Eastern Orthodox churches, which is not 8 days from Christmas. All Lutheran churches and some churches of the Anglican community, while the Divine Maternity of Mary is observed on the 26th of December in the Byzantine Rite, both in Greek Orthodox and Byzantine Catholic churches. In the general Roman calendar, the 1st of January feast, which from 1568 to 1960 was called the Circumcision of the Lord and the Octave of the Nativity. Jesus, this is so strange. God loves you no matter what. Well, unless you're Palestinian, or unless you happen to be one of those children that keeps getting raped by the clergy. I mean, if that's God's love, I don't want it. So you can take your stupid God and stick it straight up your ass. Christians know when Jesus walked on water and turned water into wine, but they can't set a true date of when their Savior was born. Well, the thing is, dude, like, look at all this. I didn't know about all this stuff. Did you? Have you ever heard of the Feast of the Circumcision? And is now the solemnity of Mary, Mother of God, and the octave day of the Nativity of the Lord. In Western Christianity, the Feast of the Naming and Circumcision of Jesus marks the 8th day, octave day, of Christmade, or of Christmastide. Yes, I have cult shit they do. I mean, this is nuts. You've heard of all this? I never heard of all that. I've never heard of this Christian stuff that basically just confirms it's all really just Jewish nonsense. Textual source. And when 8 days were fulfilled to circumcise the child, his name was called Jesus, the name called by the angel before he was conceived in the womb. Luke 2:21. I mean, again, this is just stupid. I mean, do we understand why they waited 8 days? Do you guys know why they waited 8 days? Because the Jays believe the woman's vagina is so disgusting and toxic that it takes 8 days, well, 7 days, for the child to be purified of its horrible vagina curse. And on the 8th day is when the child is pure again, or has been purified. So that's pretty fucking Feast of the Circumcision of Jesus. Circumcision of Jesus. Oh, Jesus Christ. Ugh. So this is the picture. I'm covering the yucky part. This is the picture of supposedly Jesus. Look at his face. Look at his dumb face. Oh, fuck. Look at his dumb face. Hey, what you doing? It's a big ass baby. That's a big ass brand new baby with rosy cheeks and shit. The circumcision of Jesus is an event from the life of Jesus, according to the Gospel of Luke, chapter 2, which states, "And the 8 days were done, the circumcision is named. The 8 days after his birth is traditionally observed January 1st. Which, I mean, what are we talking about here? Fuck Hanukkah. Hanukkah is disgusting. Hanukkah is disgusting. And what people don't understand, okay, so Hanukkah, thanks for letting me go in this direction. We think of Hanukkah as like this, oh, it's their goofy little holiday. They 12 days instead of, the 12 days, they get 8, whatever they get. I don't even care. I don't care what Hanukkah is. I'm just saying, I don't care what we're told it is. I'm going to tell you what it really is. So Hanukkah is the celebration of what's called the Maccabee Revolt. Okay? So the Maccabee Revolt is that the Jays, who weren't being persecuted at the time, who, it was just said that, listen, your cult practice of cutting and sucking on baby penises is not okay. So we're not going to let that happen. We're going to do you guys can practice your religion all you want. You just can't do the cutting and sucking thing. That's really gross. And so they didn't. Until this group, this family, the Maccabees, decided that, no, you know what? We are going to cut and suck. And that's our thing. And that's their main mitzvah. In the J religion, circumcision is the number one most important thing. That and building the mikvahs, which are the weird baths that the women have to go into once a month to clean their vaginas, to purify their vaginas, because vaginas are gross, remember? But the Maccabees were this group of Jays that decided they were going to circumcise. And so they went around Europe, with their Godspeed and with their amazing ability to travel back then. And they found different Jay families, and they would say, hey, we're going to do the circumcision thing from now on. So are you willing to circumcise yourself now that you're an adult, and now that, you haven't circumcised, and maybe this hasn't happened for a generation or whatever? You guys are going to willing to circumcise right now, right? And if they weren't willing to circumcise, the Jays, the Maccabees, would kill them. So Jays were killing Jays to ensure that they would continue their cult practices. And they went around again. They got all the Jays that were willing to circumcise. Like you hear these stories and you think, so these people had like their homestead, right? And they had their farms that they were undoubtedly living on, and at least according to like narrative. Yet in all situations like this, in all these historical situations, people had their lives that one group or another, a religious group, the government, whatever, would come and be like, hey, we need you to fight. So they would just leave their lives behind and join this thing. And then they would march around whatever it is, Europe, America, whatever area they were in, they would march around. Somehow everybody would still be fed. Somehow everybody would still, have clothing, have uniforms, just the undertake. Like we are so stupid that we don't look at things like this. We don't think about logistics. When the government shows us, they say, look, Here is at least 5,000, 1,500. I think in the beginning it was 1,500. 1,500 South Americans are walking up to the United States, and we've caught them down here at Guatemala or whatever it was. And we have our reporter out there interviewing these Mexicans, and you can see these Mexicans are looking like, why are you showing people our faces? And there's one that's pushing a wheelchair. One guy is pushing a wheelchair. And of course, all these people have clean clothing on. This is summertime. So they're supposedly walking from South America. So somehow they crossed the Panama Canal. They crossed the Panama Canal. I mean, the story picks up on the north side of the Panama Canal, so they don't have to explain that to you. They don't have to be like, how are you going to get across? But they show all these people, and these people are just walking. Like, where are they sleeping? What are they eating? What are they drinking at summertime? They would need lots of water to be able to do this. Right? But this isn't stuff you're supposed to think about. And then somehow these people, don't worry, people, they won't be up to the States until for another month. By the end of the week, they're like, look, they made it to 1,200 miles somehow. In the last few days, they made it all that distance, and now they're here trying to get through. And look, we have a video of them pulling up the fence and going under the... Why do you have a video of that? Who took that video? Who sent you that video? You're telling me some South American, some Mexican had their cell phone out and was filming them cutting through the fence and then sent it to the news agencies like, look at what we did. But this is what you're told, and you're told that back then, all these Maccabees, all these Jays joined the Maccabees, and they then attacked Rome and won and got their right to. Let's see. We'll make sure we get it perfectly. Maccabee revolt. Here, I'm going to read it to you because, I make these things up. The Maccabean revolt was a Jewish rebellion led by the Maccabees against the Seleucid Empire and against Hellenistic influence on Jewish life. This should be really good. The main phase of the revolt lasted from minus 167 to minus 160 BC. Think about that. Like somebody said earlier, we can do that. I love pointing this shit out. So we know about this supposed revolution that took place 2,000 plus years ago in the minus times. Now, for those that don't get it, in 525, a guy called Dionysus, some dude in Italy, just decides that Christ should be at the center of our history. Like, there's no Christ stories or anything that he's referring to. But I don't know what year it was, but he just decides that the birth of Christ, the existence of Christ was 525 years ago. There is no year zero. It goes from 1 to minus 1. But he just decides that. And you don't get to know how he did that. What did he use to calculate that? What library, what resources did he have that he was like, okay, this happened and that was 25 years ago, so minus 25. Okay, and then there was this and that happened. And they got all the way back so he could be like, okay, and then Jesus was 525 years ago. And then to think this guy just takes his findings to the authority at the time, which would be the Romans, I guess, or even the church. I'm not even sure. But he takes his findings, you know, again, Godspeed and riding on horses or something, I don't know. But he takes it to the powers that be, and he says, hey, I think it's 525. And they go, hey, that's a good idea. Okay, now it's 525. All of the history books, all of the everything that we have, documentation, everything, we have to just redo it. Go ahead and redo it all so that in 2024, we know that the Maccabee revolt took place between 167 and 160, minus 160. Like, if this just makes sense to you, then I'd love to hear how. I'd love to hear the answers to these things. And this is the issue that you'll always find. You know, the narrative is that you should educate yourself. You should, you know, learn as much as you can. And it's like, okay, so once I get to this point where I now have way more questions than I even knew I had, who do I talk to? Where do I go to? Right? Who do you ask about Dionysus in 525? You know, and the thing is, again, we know these details about these goofy ass J stories from supposedly a couple thousand years ago. But the proof, the telemetry data on how we went to the moon from 1969 to 1972, 6 times or whatever, the actual proof that shows the data as to how, not the whole what story, how, the proof, which is rooms full of, like a huge, it's not like it's all on one flash drive. This was rooms full of information. Yeah, we lost that. We lost the greatest achievement known to man, leaving our planet. So much so that we can't do it now because we lost all that information. You know, less than 100 years ago, and we've lost it. We have no idea. But let it be 2,000 years ago and have to do with the J's, and oh yeah, we know it. And the thing is, all the J stuff doesn't exist for even longer. You know, yeah, there was no real talk of Christ. Like, there's no actual talk of it. You know, the whole Dionysus thing is a story that supposedly involves it, but there was no literature or anything that exists from that time. The first documents that we had up until the convenient discovery of the Dead Sea Scrolls in 46 was from like the 900s. That was the earliest known Christ stories that existed prior to the convenient find of the Dead Sea Scrolls. And the thing with the Jays, it's even worse. They you know, the Jays don't have any sort of written. Hebrew is the youngest language in the world. It was created around 100 years ago by a guy called Eliezer ben Yehuda. Eliezer ben Yehuda. He changed his name to Ben Yehuda. But he basically invented Hebrew. And there's no story like that. What they say is the reason why there's not a lot of written J history to sort of prove their superiority is because it wasn't written down. It was all oral. For all of the years, the hundreds, thousands of years, it was just oral traditions. Because the Jays claim they've been persecuted for 5,000 years. Jesus was only killed 2,000 years ago, so who'd they kill in the previous 3,000 years that made them such bad guys? But they you know, that's the claim, is they're always the claim is that they're the people at the top of the ladder are the most persecuted people, blah, blah, blah. It's so fucking stupid. It's so arrogantly stupid when they claim that here in the States they have it worse than anyone else. But like I say, we know that these guys did this thing between minus 67 and minus 60, but we lost the telemetry data to prove we went to the moon. The main phase of the revolt lasted from 67, 167, minus 167 to minus 160. That's 7 years. Think about that. 7 years worth of food, 7 years worth of travel, worth of planning, worth of, like it's a great story, but man, the logistics. It's all about the logistics. I'm always telling you guys, focus on the logistics. The logistics will open the door. The logistics will help you understand things. And usually the logistics will help you understand that it's bullshit you're reading, but that's the point. Lasted from blah blah and ended with the Seleucids in control of Judea. But conflict between the Maccabees, Hellenized Jews, and the Seleucids continued until 134 minus 134 BC, when the Maccabees eventually attained independence. I mean, we're talking about 30 years of war because one group wants to cut and suck penises. That's literally it. That they were allowed to practice their bullshit. That it was just this one thing that was stopping it. So now it says the date of it was 167 to 141, when right above it says 134. Result. Revolt succeeded. Rebellion fought under leadership of Judas Maccabeus. Judas. Another one of those Judases. Festival of Hanukkah, established in honor of the capture of Jerusalem, cleansing of the Second Temple, and rededication of the altar. Seleucid authority in major cities reestablished from 160 to 152, minus 160 to minus 152. Judea autonomy from minus 152 to 141. And Simon Thassi appointed high priest in 141 minus 141. Start of the independent Hasmonean kingdom. Seleucid king Antiochus, I don't know. We'll call him Anti. Anti the Fourth Epiphanes launched a massive campaign of the repression against the Jewish religion in 1968. The reason he did so is not entirely clear. Right. The reason, as always, the reason, the how, the meat and potatoes of it. Oh, we don't know that. We just know all the details surrounding it, but we don't know why. We just don't know why everybody always hates us so much. Do you understand that this story is as old as they are? That for some unknown reason, people just don't like them. And they're terrible. How dare they not like them? We're talking about people who walk around, looking for a reason to be like, oh yeah, well, because I'm Jay, I think this way. Like establishing their superiority. Because, again, they've tricked you Christians into believing that the bad guys in the Bible, not Satan, the bad guys in the Bible, the people that killed your God's son, your superhero, that look down on you to this day, that they are your God's chosen favorite people. They killed his kid, and they are his chosen favorite people. You guys accept that? Think about how just insane that is. But it's always this same shit. It's always, we don't know why everybody hates us so much. Because they're awful. They're awful, rude, mean people. Very supremacist people. Anybody that thinks that they are chosen by God and everything else that isn't them is called goyim. Everything. Beds, tables, chairs, people, animals, you name it. It's all goyim, and it's all here for them. That is such an arrogant point of view. That's such an ugly, arrogant point of view. Christians don't think that way. Muslims don't think that way. And yet those two are the ones we're allowed to talk about. The ones we're not allowed to talk about, we all know we're not allowed to talk about them. Why aren't we allowed to talk about them? I mean, if what you're doing is good and righteous and all that stuff, shouldn't you want people talking about it? But let's keep going. They're gonna, you know, the reason is always, and not entirely clear, but it seems to have been related to the king mistaking an internal conflict among the Jay priesthood as a full-scale rebellion. Oh, it was just a mistake. It's just a mistake. It was just a mistake, and yet, and you know, just keep following here. This is what they say. The next thing they say is, Jay practices were banned. Jerusalem was placed under direct Seleucid control, and the Second Temple in Jerusalem was made the site of a syncretic pagan Jewish cult. Wow, that's a lot of stuff. And again, let's think about this. We're talking about 2,000-year-old people, like the people from 2,000 years ago. What mass, communication system did they have? How would anybody, why would the king give a shit about some small little group of people having some priests having some sort of conflict amongst them and blah, blah, blah. And then goes, you know what? Those priests aren't getting along. I heard about it from my sources, so I'm going to ban the practices. No, it's all about the practices. It's about the practices. That's where the problem is. This response triggered exactly the revolt that Anti IV had feared, with a group of Jewish fighters led by Judas Maccabeus, Judea Maccabee, and his family rebelling in 167, minus 167, and seeking independence. So again, what are we talking about? Like 10, 20 people? I mean, how big a family could this be? The rebels as a whole would come to be known as the Maccabees, and their actions would be chronicled later in the book of First Maccabees and Second Maccabees. Of course. Nobody was talking about it at the time, though. None of the historians and all that shit. We're just basically going off of their story, as always. Just like how today, the only stories we get are from Israel. All the claims of around 1,100 people were killed and in Israel at the time. No Israelis were killed. No Israelis were taken hostage. That's all bullshit. They literally lie about everything. Look into Hai Shaline. Look into Samantha Wohl. Explain to me how somebody can be found dead at 6:30 a.m. and by 24 hours later, well, maybe like 28 hours later, the newspapers are talking about how beautiful the funeral that over 1,000 people attended was yesterday. Samantha Wool was killed on October 21st, found dead 6:30 a.m. on October 21st, 2023. And the newspapers, the morning newspapers on October 22nd talk about her funeral that over 1,000 people attended. How's that possible? Isn't there, I mean, it's a murder. Wouldn't there be some sort of investigation that wouldn't allow you to have a funeral within hours of being killed? But hey, you keep believing it, right? You keep believing it. The rebellion started as a guerrilla movement in the Judean countryside, raiding towns and terrorizing Greek officials far from direct Seleucid control, but it eventually developed a proper army capable of attacking the fortified Seleucid cities. That's just an amazing yada yada, don't you think? This group of Jays, oh gosh, it's hot out here. Can you imagine a group of Jays attacking like that? A group of Jays that don't have American-made weaponry and all that shit. Superior force, superior shit. They don't have superior force. They don't have superior numbers. They're Jays. They're weak. And yet somehow they're just overriding all this. These towns over these raid groups are just yada yada overriding. In 1964, or in 164 minus 164, the Maccabees captured Jerusalem in a significant early victory. Again, that's some yada yada. The subsequent cleansing of the temple and rededication of the altar on 25 Kislev is the source of the festival of Hanukkah. All right. The cleansing of the temple. What do you think they mean by cleansing of the temple? Don't you see how fucking crazy that is? Don't you see how crazy that is? The Seleucids eventually relented and unbanned Judaism, but the more radical Maccabees, not content with merely reestablishing J practices under Seleucid rule, continued to fight, pushing for a more direct break with the Seleucids. Gosh, that's crazy. So even after they were given what they wanted, they had to keep going. Gee, that sounds familiar. Judas Maccabee died on 160 minus 160 BCE at the Battle of Elasna. Again, some real details here. Against the Greek general Bashides. And the Seleucids reestablished direct control for a time, but remnants of the Maccabees under Judas's brother, Jonathan Aphis, continued to resist from the countryside. Yeah, his brother with a different name. Makes sense. Makes total sense. Eventually, internal division among the Seleucids and problems elsewhere in their empire would give the Maccabees their chance for proper independence in 141, minus 141. Simon Thassi succeeded in expelling the Greeks from their citadel in Jerusalem. An alliance with the Roman Republic helped guarantee their independence. Oh, so the Roman Republic, the America of its time. Simon would go on to establish an independent Hasmonean kingdom. The revolt had a great impact on Jewish nationalism as an example of a successful campaign to establish political independence and resist governmental anti-Jewish suppression. Boy, it is the same goddamn story over and over and over again. They're just oppressed. We don't know why. We don't know what it is. It's just weird. I don't know why they keep banning our practices. And what they're talking about, they're here. We'll continue reading. Beginning in 338 minus 338 BCE, Alexander the Great began an invasion of the Persian Empire in minus 333 to minus 332. Alexander's Macedonian forces conquered the Levant, including Palestine. Palestine didn't exist. Palestine's not real, right? Right? Isn't that what they always say? There was no Palestine. At the time, Judea was home to many Jews who had returned from exile in Babylon thanks to the Persians. They were exiled to Babylon. I really want to read that, but I'm not going to right now. Alexander's empire was partitioned in 323, minus 323, after Alexander's death, and after the wars of the Diadochi. The territory was taken by what would become Ptolemaic Egypt in minus 302 to minus 301. I mean, these are some really fine details here, right? We're getting years and we're getting, and each one of these things I can maybe look into. But we lost that telemetry data. Damn it. Another of the Greek successor states, the Seleucid Empire, would conquer Judea from Egypt during a series of campaigns from minus 235 to minus 198. I mean, again, we're talking about almost 40 years for 40 years? They just don't want to, like these chat GPT narratives. They just spit this shit out because the only people that are going to be looking into this are people who want to believe it or people doing like stupid kids doing book reports. They don't ever expect someone skeptical to come read it. Because if you're skeptical and you start just asking really basic questions, of course you're not going to get any answers, but it sounds so dumb. They're just for 40 years, they're just trying to conquer this with this one little area. During both the Ptolemaic and Seleucid rule, many Jews learned Koine Greek, especially upper-class Jews and Jewish minorities in towns further afield from Jerusalem and more attached to Greek trading networks. Greek philosophical ideas spread through the region as well. A Greek translation of the scriptures, the Septuagint, was also created during the 3rd century BCE. Man, details. Many Jews adopted dual names with both a Greek name and a Hebrew name, such as Jason and Joshua. Still, many Jews continued to speak the Aramaic language, the language that descended from what was spoken during the Babylonian exile. Right, because Hebrew wasn't a thing. In general, the ruling Greek policy during the time period was to let Jews manage their own affairs and not interfere overtly with religious matters. Greek authors in the 3rd century BCE, would that be minus the 3rd century? Would that be -2 or -4? I'm not sure how that works. Wrote about Jerusalem, did so mostly positively. Cultural change did happen, but was largely driven by Jews themselves, inspired by ideas from abroad. Greek rulers did not undertake explicit programs of forced Hellenization. Ante IV Epiphanes came to the throne of the Seleucids in -175. Like, this is jumping all around. If you were writing a report this way, you'd get in trouble, because why are we not going in order? Why are we going 3rd century, 175? It's weird. And did not change this policy. He appears to have done little to antagonize the region at first, and the Jews were largely content under his rule. One element that would come to later prominence was Ante IV replacing the high priest Onias III with his brother Jason, after Jason offered a large sum of money to Ante. Jason also sought and received permission to make Jerusalem a self-governing polis, albeit with Jason able to control the citizenship lists of who would be able to vote and hold political office. Think about this. What are we talking about here? Like, aren't these people, they don't have lights, they don't have phones, they don't have electricity, they don't have cars. How are they doing all of this? Thinking about this guy is just sitting there, and he's keeping track of all the people and the voting and the, I mean, we're talking about, this is minus years. And all these people were all educated and voting, and what are we talking about here? Good old Jason. It's just Jason. Jason. He's the one Jason in the area. Was able to control. The changes did not immediately appear to rouse any particular complaint from the minority or from the majority of the citizenry in Jerusalem, and presumably, he still kept the basic Jewish laws and tenets. 3 years later, a newcomer from Milanius offered an even larger bribe to Ante for the position of high priest. Just think about this. So this other guy comes in and he's like, I've got money. Of course, the money has to go through the court Jew at the time, which was the money changer, because Melanus money wasn't good in Seleucid area. Like, that's not how it worked back then. And the Jews were known as the money changers back then. So you would have to go to the court Jew who was associated with the king. And when the king would be killed or died, then supposedly the court Jew was killed as well. But in order to get any sort of, like, because again, this isn't something we think about. We don't think about how, okay, so the Seleucids had their own money. Who was smelting all of these coins, and what foundry did they have? What mint did they have? What mint did each of these individual little countries and individual little kingdoms and whatnot, how did they make so many coins? We have coins from thousands of years ago that and we have large numbers of those. How were they making all of these coins back then? And the fact that we still have some means there just had to be millions of coins. How were they making all these coins back then? Additionally, a rumor spread that Millennius had sold Golden Temple artifacts to help pay for the bribe, leading to unhappy. I can think he somehow got his hands on some Golden Temple artifacts, and then somehow sold them to somebody in the black market, using the internet, using the dark web. Like, how the fuck did he come across the secret buyer that had all this extra money? Here's some money, and gave, think about this. This is the history that they give us. And because it's written in modern times, they sort of just put a modern spin on it, hoping you don't understand it, hoping you don't recognize what you're seeing. But this just doesn't make any sense. These ideas don't make any sense when you think about, these are people who didn't have showers, didn't have grocery stores, the guy came riding in on his horseback and was like, I have, it's just stupid. Think about like Robin Hood. It's Robin Hood. Yet again, that they were still capable of building huge castles and churches and shit. Leading to unhappiness, especially among the city council Jason had established. The conflict was largely political rather than cultural. All sides at this point were Hellenized, content with Seleucid rule, and primarily divided over Millennius's alleged corruption and sacrilege. In minus 170 to minus 168, the Sixth Syrian War between the Seleucids and the Ptolemaic Egyptians arose. Ante IV led an army to attack Egypt. He leads an army. Like, you go watch 300 and go think about like the army that they fought. How did that army eat? What were they eating? They were able to capture so many animals along the way. The animals didn't hear that big fucking ruckus of people coming and run. They were able to capture so many animals. They also had a mobile kitchen with them that they were able to feed all of these people. Just think about all of these things that you're told. So this guy, he's leading an attack on Egypt. Hey, army, okay, we're going to get going. Everybody get on your horses. All of you well-trained soldiers who have been part of our army that we've been feeding and clothing, and we gave you all the weapons. We made all these weapons. Let's see. On his way back through Jerusalem after the successful campaign. Oh, so we just yada yada that. So he won that war. Went there, kicked Egypt's ass, and then went back. Was like, oh, hey, on our way back through Jerusalem, High Priest Millennius allegedly invited Ante inside the Second Temple, a violation of J law, And he raised the temple treasury for 1,800 talents. Oh, and he raided, the temple treasury for 1,800 talents. A talent is a unit of weight used in the ancient world, often used for weighing gold and silver, but also mentioned in connection with other metals, ivory, and frankincense. In Homer's poem, it is always used of gold and is thought to have been quite small, weight of about 8.5 grams, approximately the same as latter gold stater, as the latter gold stater coin or Persian daric. That's so stupid. Okay, tensions in the Ptolemaic dynasty continued, and Antony rode out on campaign. That was weird. It just like flipped. Campaign again in minus 168 BCE. Jason heard a rumor that Antony had perished and launched an attempted coup against Milanius in Jerusalem. Hearing this, Antony, who was not dead, apparently interpreted this factional infighting as a revolt against his personal authority and sent an army to crush Jason's plotters. Do you not? This is insane detail for minus years, for 2,000 plus years ago. We lost the telemetry data for how we went to the moon. Greatest achievement we've ever done. We lost that within the last 65, 70 years. But yet, all this detail from minus 160 something, we got it. Fuck yeah, it survived everything. It was written down on pieces of paper that somehow survived. Parchments and papyrus. From 168, minus 168 to minus 167, the conflict spiraled out of control and government policy radically shifted. Thousands in Jerusalem were killed and thousands more were enslaved. The city was attacked twice. New Greek governors were sent. The government seized land and property from Jason's supporters, and the temple in Jerusalem was made the site of a syncretic Greek Jewish religious group, polluting it in the eyes of devout Jews. God, this is so goofy. You don't think this is ChatGPT. You think this, okay. A new citadel garrisoned by Greeks and pro-Seleucid Jews, the Acra, ACRA, was built in Jerusalem. Antony IV issued decrees officially suppressing the Jewish religion. Subjects were required to eat pork. Like, this is where it just gets stupid. They were required to eat pork and violate Jewish dietary law. Think about how silly that is. How do you require people to eat pork? Think about that. Like, what are they doing? Are they are they sending soldiers to all the houses and being like, all right, we're here to watch you eat dinner. You better eat some pork. I mean, it's just fucking stupid. But this, okay, so because they just can't come up with anything and it's all just stupid, they come up with this kind of stupid shit. Where, this is like, again, they were told they had to wear a badge on their arm or pinned to their chest so that they could be identified. And instead of just taking the badge off, they apparently wore it to their doom. I mean, it's like that kind of stupidity is just continuously thrust on you. And I'm sure if you just sort of read over it, you're like, wow, man, forced to eat pork. Okay, blah, blah, blah. But if you just stop and think, like, how do you even make that happen? Chubby girl! How do you make somebody eat? How do you make an entire group of people eat something that they don't want to eat? In the minus years, right? This is the minus years. It's the minus years. Even the circumcision thing, you're going to find out it's really stupid. It's really stupid. How would anybody know how circumcised you, if you're circumcised or not? Were they just doing checks? Knock, knock. Penis check. Yeah, we're here to check to see if any penises are circumcised. Yeah, that's what was happening. Oh, it's so stupid. It's just this is them. When I tell you they're stupid, I'm not trying to be mean. I'm just saying the truth. It's just you have to be stupid to fall for this shit. You know, you can't be even a little bit intelligent and believe these narratives that you're given. They were forced to eat pork. That's the first thing they came up with. I had to stop for a minute because it's about to, because there's a whole bunch of yada yada and a bunch of bullshit before we get to the part where the nuts and bolts of it, the bits and pieces, if you will. Hang on. Ugh. So, this is when I'm telling you. Whenever I tell you any of this shit, I don't talk about. I'm not looking to be proven wrong. So I don't sit here and talk about things that I might think, I might have heard this or whatever. When the narrative, the rumor was that Buzz Aldrin was talking to a little girl, or maybe it was Neil Armstrong. I think it was Buzz. And he said, we never went to the moon. We never went to the moon. And everybody's sharing the video and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, I wonder how many people actually watched the video, because I went and watched it. And he clearly says, yeah, we didn't go back to the moon. I want to know why we didn't go back. Why didn't we go? But if you just watch the little clip of it, where he just says, why didn't we go? And it's edited, then, you're stupid. And you share this thing that they put out there to try to trick you. And that's why I am where I am, because I don't want to be that stupid. I don't want to be easily tricked. So if you read what they want you to read, and you know what they want you to know, that's not saying this is true or anything, but this is what they're going to throw at you. And if you don't know what they're talking about, then they can just go, well, you just don't know. But if you go, no, I know about it. I probably know about it more than you do. It just throws them off, and they start saying all kinds of stupid shit. Look at my comments. All right, so they were forced to violate Jewish dietary law. They were forced to work on the Jewish Sabbath, right? Which is, oh my gosh, they have to work on the same day everybody else has to work. Oh, why don't they get special rules and privileges? Why don't all of us be compromised to accommodate their bullshit religion? When everybody else, the majority of the people, are like, no, we're gonna not work on Sundays. Saturday is a day of work. They're like, no, we don't want that. You got to stay open. And like that's the narrative that they're up against. But so we have forcing them to eat pork, forcing them to work when they don't want to work, ceasing circumcision, cease circumcising their sons. Isn't that what I said? Isn't that what I said? And so on. And so on. They don't have anything else. The first two things are just dumb. The one thing is an impossible thing. How do you force somebody, a whole population, to eat pork? You don't. Secondly, I have to take that with me. I gotta go. Damn. Go where? I gotta drop that off at Mom's and get back so I can finish food. Gotta plug the slow cookers in there. We're talking about Hanukkah.
Yeah.
So again, they don't. It's just like the comments. It's the same thing as the comments. They don't actually have anything to say. If they could say more, they wouldn't. So then they do something stupid. They,
Yeah. Nathan's being relentless.
okay, guys, stop.
I asked him if he would help me peel the
Yeah.
No.
Then he's gonna.
Yeah, no, there's no helping. Just do the job. Don't ask. Don't be disappointed. Just trust me. He'll be cleaning the bathroom later. So you need to be quiet and don't say anything. Just do your gig and don't get yourself in trouble over it.
He's upset because he thinks his hair's too short, and Nathan will not stop teasing him.
Right? Like he did to Nathan when his hair was cut.
Oh, this is worse.
Well,
It's being relentless.
I can't believe you cut his hair. I can't believe you made him cut his hair.
He was supposed to just trim it. But see, like I told Nick, once you take the weight off, your curls get tighter.
Yeah, well, he should know that. And that was
grow back fast.
That was a lot of hair. That's bullshit. Anyway, so the reason for the Maccabee revolt is because they were forced to eat pork. How do you force a population to eat pork? In their homes by themselves. Like, do you have soldiers standing there making sure they're eating pork? Forcing them to work on the day when everybody else works. So, sorry you have your weird practices, but we work, Monday through Saturday. If you want to be a part of our shit, you got to do the same thing. Stop cutting and sucking their sons, and so on. There's nothing else. They don't have anything else. The policy of tolerance of Jewish worship was at an end. Again, that's just, this is what they say. They exaggerate and make things out of, make this small thing. Look, you can practice your shit. You can do what you want. Just stop cutting and sucking. Because it's disgusting. That's the other part. It never gets mentioned that it's because it's disgusting. It's the worst. It's just the fucking worst. And you're not supposed to know this. Unless you're reading this and you're skeptical, you're just going to read through it and be like, oh, okay. Map of the Diadochi successor states in 188 BC, minus 188. What are we doing here?
I gotta go.
By 167 BC, yeah, let me just get one more. By 167 BCE, minus 167, the start of the revolt, the anti-Genoid kingdom of Macedonia, independent in 188 BCE, had been shattered and mostly conquered by the Roman Republic. The kingdom of Pergamon, directly on the Seleucid border, was a close Roman ally. Rhodes would become permanent allies of the Romans in 164 BCE. Battles during the Maccabee revolt, the rebellion. For Antony, the unexpected conquest of the city, Jerusalem, the looting, and the wholesale slaughter were not enough. His psychopathic tendency was exacerbated by resentment at what the siege had cost him, and he tried to force the Jews to violate their traditional codes of practice by leaving their infant sons uncircumcised. Oh, it's crazy to think that would be anything good or anything bad. Oh my gosh, they're not allowed to to mutilate their children, let alone the sucking, but the mutilation. It's like, are we can't be that stupid. We say circumcision like it's nothing, and maybe it's because we feel guilty or whatever, but We're talking about just the most horrendous practice we do. And they make it worse. I mean, okay, so the way it's done, I guess we got to take a little break here. So for the Goyim, for us, for everybody that's not them, what they've done is tricked us into marking ourselves as J property. Because, for all of you that think you do it for religious reasons, well, if you think you do it for medical reasons, that's bullshit. If it was medical, it would be across the board. And in Europe, they don't do it because they say the medical benefits do not outweigh the risks. So that just shows you the medical stuff is bullshit. The religious aspect of it is, so in the Bible, Abraham, who is the father of the J people, he's actually, like, when you just don't realize it, but the big three, the Abrahamic religions, they're called Abrahamic because they all come from this Abraham character, right? Meaning they all come from the J's. Because Abraham is the father of the J people. He's the main bad guy in the Bible. And Abraham is having a conversation with God, and God's like, well, tell you what, I'll never flood the earth again, and I'll show this, I'll prove it to you by showing you rainbows from here on out. Every time you see a rainbow, that's me honoring my half of the oath. If you, the J people, circumcise your children, circumcise yourself, circumcise your children, and you circumcise your slaves. I don't even know if God necessarily wanted the slave circumcised, or if Abraham was just like, can I do that too? But it's all about them doing it. The reason is them circumcising their babies on the 8th day because they believe the vagina is so disgusting that the kid needs to be purified for 7 days. But for us, they've tricked us into mutilating and traumatizing our newborn children, freshly newborn, hours old children get put through, and they like compare it to like piercing an ear or something. But they get put through the most traumatic experience any of us can imagine within hours of, they don't even know what's going on. They've just got here. They can barely see. They're just sort of like getting used to hearing, and they're they don't understand anything. They haven't experienced anything. They're hours old. And we take them away from their mothers. We put them in a cold nursery where they're then taken to the operating room where they're basically crucified. Their arms are what?
What do you keep telling Nick about me?
Nothing. What are you talking about? Stop being weird and just, okay, you guys. Hey, are you guys making your mom's Christmas good?
Yes.
Really? Have you been?
Yes, I feel 2 bags worth of giant cake.
I get it. That part's great, but as far as the mentality, and as far as how you guys are treating each other and whatnot.
Nate was making fun of me because of my short hair.
I know. You know why he did that? Wait. Can you stop yelling? Because I know you're trying to talk over me. Why did he do it? Well, no. Wait. Stop. What did you do when his hair was cut? A lot, right? But nothing. Can you not be away like I told you last time?
Oh no, I'm right here.
Okay.
And you're just peeling potatoes.
Okay, so what have we been telling you your whole life? Right, because it'll come back on you, right? Right. So he's not in the right at all here, but if you didn't do it, he wouldn't do it.
No, he just thinks it's funny
because you do it to him, dude. There's no but.
Is that true? What? Is it true that you're only making fun of me because I made fun of you for having short hair? Not, and
Right. At least you're not at school.
My hair is so short. It is. It looks like last.
Okay, so now you're just going to keep going. Because it is, and you're just going to keep going. See, you just jump right into it. Right? So if you make an adjustment, I bet an adjustment will come back your way, right?
What?
Like you stop doing it?
Stop making a big deal about my hair?
No, you stop making a big deal. You stop making. Are you serious right now? You don't understand what I'm saying? So, what's the moral of this story? Because, okay, so if you understand that part, how do you not understand the solution? Seems like you're just kind of trying to be difficult again. So can you just stop, especially since your mom is super stressed out. You know she's in holiday stressed out mode, and all you guys are doing is making it worse. Thank you. Love you too, bud. All right. So they strap the babies down, crucify them, and then they don't put anesthetic on it. Of course they don't put anesthetic on it. It's a newborn baby. They're not going to give it any chemicals, and that's dangerous. They put a little bell thing on it, strapped down. Arms are strapped down like a crucifix. His legs are strapped down. They put a little bell thing on it, and they spin the bell, and when the bell spins, it cuts the skin off. And the glands and all the other shit that's there. I don't want to say just skin because that makes it sound worse, I guess. I mean, I can't. We're cutting pieces off of children within hours of being born. I mean, are you fucking kidding me? And so the Bible, Abraham circumcises himself and then circumcises all of his slaves. That's what we're doing. We're letting them circumcise us and mark us as slaves, as property. We're the property because us doing it, it doesn't matter. We're not the ones keeping God from flooding the earth. They're the ones keeping God. Abraham made the pact with God about their people doing it. We only do it as good slaves, as good little fucking goyim. And you just don't get it. You think it's because your Bible somehow says it's the right thing. You don't even know. Most of you don't even know the fucking story, and you still do it. And you do it because you're pressured into it by the system, by the doctors, by the system around you. You don't want your kid to have a penis that doesn't look deformed. Because American women have been tricked into thinking that the deformed penis is the right one. It's deformed. We all get mad when we hear about what the Muslims, the Wahhabi Muslims in Saudi Arabia do to the little girls. We all hate that, don't we? And yet we do this for J customs. We mutilate and traumatize our own children. Because again, if you look at a newborn that's hours old compared to a baby that's 8 days old, it's dramatically different. The 8-day-old is almost double the size of the hours old baby. The hours old baby is still like got blue extremities and it's all shriveled up and it's just barely there. And yet we traumatize our children. Why do you think the United States has the highest prison population? We have such a tremendous rape culture and penis culture. Why do you think? Maybe it's because not only do we do this, right? So when it's done to the goyim, the baby immediately screams for a second, and then goes into shock. And shock is fucking awful. Shock in itself is traumatic. So while the baby's in shock, these fucking heartless bastards, you're just another number. They take you from the operating table, wrap that shit up so you pee all on it, and then take the baby into the nursery again until it comes out of shock, which could take an hour, could take longer. Once the baby finally comes out of shock and passes out, then they scoop it up and they take it to mom and dad and they, oh, look at little man had his surgery. He's so sleepy. I remember it clear as day. They make it sound like it's this surgery and he's so sleepy and he's such a champ. He did such a good job. And they even fucked up my kids, so we had to get it done a second time to keep it from looking all crazy weird. Because it was fucked up. They half did it, so we had to actually have them have proper surgery afterward. Like, what a horrible situation to be put into. But there's that trauma of being alone. That not only did this just happen to this newborn, it's then got to figure out what the fuck just happened to me all by itself. This is literally one of the first experiences American males have. One of the very first things we experience on a very significant level is trauma. Is disfigurement and trauma. They, because they think the women's vagina is so disgusting, the baby has to be purified for 7 days before the moil will even touch it. So on the 8th day, they have a big party where all of the family comes, and it's supposed to be overly joyous. So not only is everybody there, but they're extra happy. Because again, they understand they're about to traumatize the child. And they're trying to make it overly compensate for the trauma. So they have this party with all of the family. And everybody is dressed to the nines. And it's all this great thing. So then they all stand around in like a circle around where the moil, whose only job it is to perform circumcisions, comes, clamps, cuts, and then sucks on the baby penis. And then as the baby is like, it's passed to the family. Oh no, it's love, it's love, it's love. And it's passed around the room and given, overt love. It's okay, it's okay, it's love, it's okay. I know that hurts, it's love, it's love, it's love. Reinforcing that, you're safe, you're okay. And considering in that previous 8 days, that child has experienced love, warmth, comfort, security, food, happiness, laughter, family. It's experienced all these things in that first 7 days. It's not hours old in one of its first fucking experiences. That's what they do to us. That's how they've tricked us. And we do it to ourselves. And you guys think that's okay. And it's because of this. It's about Hanukkah. So, in the aftermath of Ante IV issuing his decrees forbidding Jewish religious practices, a campaign of land confiscation paired with shrine and altar building took place in the Judea countryside. Again, think about this. We're talking about, it's minus years. What? They didn't have tractors and shit. What were they using to build? Like what? How would anybody know? If you lived a couple of miles away from this thing, how would you even fucking know what was happening? The mail system was just so good back then. A rural Jewish priest from Modine, Matthias, of the Hasmonean family, sparked the revolt against the Seleucid Empire by refusing to worship the Greek gods at Modine's new altar. Matthias killed a Jew who had stepped forward to take Matthias's place in sacrificing to an idol, as well as the Greek officer who was sent to enforce the sacrifice. You believe this, right? This is the history. This is why these are God's chosen people, right? He then destroyed the altar. Afterwards, he and his 5 sons fled to the nearby mountains, which sat directly next to Modin. Right? This makes sense. After Matthias's death, about 1 year later, right, because that just happens, yada yada. In minus 166, his son Judas Maccabeus led a band of Jewish descendants who would eventually absorb other groups opposed to Seleucid rule and grow into an army. While unable to directly strike Seleucid power at first, Judas' forces could maraud the countryside and attack Hellenized Jews, of whom there were many. It's about Jews killing other Jews. Again, the Maccabees destroyed Greek altars in the village, forcibly circumcised boys, burnt villages, and drove Hellenized Jews off their land. This is the Jews doing this to their own people. This is the celebration of Hanukkah. Guys, look at this. Judas's nickname, Maccabee, now used to describe the Jewish partisans as a whole, is probably taken from the word hammer. Aramaic is Maccab, and then Hebrew is Maccabet, but that was created 100 years ago. The term Maccabee or Maccabeus would later be used as an honorific for Judas' brother as well. Judas's campaign in the countryside became a full-scale revolt. Maccabean forces employed guerrilla tactics, emphasizing speed and mobility. While less trained and under-equipped for pitched battles, the Maccabees could control which battles they took and retreat into the wilderness when threatened. Sounds like a Robin Hood type of a character story, doesn't it? Except this is literally the this is literally the I don't remember what I was like this is I mean, it's just stupid. So just because I guess they're super special, they're just chosen, I guess. They had less equipment, less training, less people, less everything, and they still somehow came out on top. That almost seems like a narrative we've heard many, many times before. They defeated 2 minor Seleucid forces at the Battle of the Ascent on Lebona in minus 167, at the Battle of Beth Horon and the Battle of Beth Horon in minus 166. Toward the end of the summer in minus 165, Ante IV departed from Babylonia in the eastern half of his empire and left Lysis in charge of the western half as a regent. I mean, just think about this. How could anyone... What communications networks did they have back then? I mean, just think about how silly this whole thing is. How long would it take for something to even get from 100 miles away to the king, and then the king make the decision, and then the decision get back to whoever it needs to get back to? Like, think about how silly all that shit is. Shortly afterwards, the Maccabees won a more substantial victory at the Battle of Emmaus. The factions attempted to negotiate a compromise but failed. A large-scale Seleucid army was sent to quash the revolt. After the Battle of Beth Sur in 164, as well as the news of the death of Anti IV in Persia, the Seleucid troops returned to Syria. The Maccabees entered Jerusalem in triumph. They ritually cleansed the Second Temple, reestablishing traditional Jewish worship there. 25 Kislev, the date of the cleansing in the Hebrew calendar, would later become the date when the festival of Hanukkah began. Regent Lysis, preoccupied with internal Seleucid affairs, agreed to a political compromise that revoked Anti IV's ban on Jewish practices. This proved a wise decision. Many Hellenized Jews had cautiously supported the revolt to the suppression of their religion. With the ban rejected, their religious goals were accomplished, and the Hellenized Jews could more easily be potential Seleucid loyalists again. The Maccabees did not consider their goals complete, however, and continued their campaign for a starker break from the Greek influence and full political independence. The rebels suffered a loss of support from moderates as a result. Like, this is what we're talking about. I'm telling you, their practices weren't banned. All they said was they somehow forced them to eat pork, which is silly. They made them work on the day that everybody else has to work, and not everybody had to be compromised because of their day of worship. So, like, it would be like today that being how it worked. The whole country being like, you know what, we're just going to change. It's not going to. The new work week is from Sunday to Saturday or to Friday. Saturday is the day off now, and we're just going to do that because this small, tiny group wants to do that. With the rebels now in control, now, again, think about this. I am reading you this extremely detailed story to some degree. I mean, obviously there's a lot of yada yada, and the like the how and the why and shit is really covered up with nonsense. But to think that we lost the telemetry data on how we went to the moon, proving how we went to the moon 6 different times, from 69 to 72, I believe, or is it 76? I don't remember. It's such a nonsense story to me that I don't put any effort into it anymore. But we lost that data. Most amazing accomplishment we've ever done is going to the moon, supposedly. And we lost the proof. We have a bunch of other shit. But the proof on how, so we could do it again, the how we got through the Van Allen radiation belts and blah, 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 blah. That part we've lost. And we haven't been able to duplicate it since. We lost that data. Well, we know this. This is the continued struggle, minus 163 to minus 160. I mean, this is all just super, super details. And I mean, it's just crazy. I don't even want to read it. I just want to see if they talk about that part where they talk about, I don't remember where it is, but I've already proved that's what Hanukkah was for. That was the whole point of this, is to prove that's what Hanukkah was for. But they talk about how it was so difficult for them because, you know, it's hard to hide your uncircumcised penis.
Now,
Yeah.
what do you get when mixing Dracula and utensils?
Forcula.
Couch spatula.
There you go. Nice. Leave me alone.
Wait, no, Dad, I got one.
What?
What did the kids say to the ghost on stage?
Boo.
Dang it!
Yeah.
You didn't get it. No.
You know, it's people saying, well, it's Christmas, what are you doing? You know what? It is, it's Christmas. And how about as a Christmas present, we think about people other than ourselves, and we think about those Palestinians who it's getting close, much closer to Christmas there than it is here. It's still Christmas Eve here. We got to be getting close to Christmas Day there. Where this, your Jesus, a Palestinian Jew who was killed by these people, like they're being killed right now. How about for Christmas, we stop the genocide that's happening right now? We stop the genocide that's happening right now to the Palestinians, and the beginnings of the genocide that's going to happen to the Lebanese and the Syrians. How about we stop all that shit? How about we stop our connection to the most murderous, disgusting regime in the world? They're awful. They've killed over 200,000 people since last October. It's reported as, 50,000 or whatever, but it's more like 200,000. It's well underreported. These are savages who, again, they have this whole fucking stupid festival of Hanukkah is about the right to cut and suck penis. Like, get the fuck out of here, man. What, I'm reading, like, I'm not making anything up. Literally nothing I say is made up. You can go validate or verify every single thing I just got done reading to you. It's all right there for you. And there's not going to be anybody that comes in and tries to tell me I'm wrong, right? Of course they're not going to tell me I'm wrong. They can't. I'm not making anything up. You can be as mad as you want for me educating people on the narrative that I'm supposed to know, that you're supposed to know. I'm wrong, right? About what part? What part am I wrong as fuck about? Let's see if you actually back that statement. If you're going to validate what you say. What and how am I wrong? Let's see. Do you know anything, or you just wanted some attention, and then now you get it. You're like, oh, he's talking to me. Yay. I got him to talk to me, guys. Yay. Thing that no one will tell you. Oh, yeah, there we go. You get the chance. You finally get the platform to maybe prove that I'm wrong. You could put me in my place. Your next fucking statement could be a big one. And what do? You fucking bite it. Fucking choke. Why do you guys think I don't address these fucking idiots? They choke. They're not worth it. These are dumb Jays, man. It's either it's regular dumb Jays and it's bots. It's Team Jorge. And for those of you who don't know what Team Jorge is just one of many, many, many Israeli black ops programs that they use to control social media. Team Jorge alone has 40,000 bots at their disposal. They did in 2022. Who knows how many they have now? Again, go look it up. The name in itself is deception. If I say Jorge, the last place you're going to think is Israel. And yet, that's what it is. It's all about deception, hacking, social media run bot farms. It's right there. So it's all there for you. Understand what's happening. Understand, who controls your narrative, why they control your narrative, what the motivations are. Do you understand that in this world, if we said, hey, you know what? We're not going to be disgusting anymore. There's going to be no more circumcision. You guys can do all your other shit, all your other crazy, goofy shit, but we're not going to let you circumcise anymore. That's mutilation. Especially, that's mutilation and molestation in your community. Like, think about it. I always ask this question. If I said to you, hey, I got a job for you. You're going to get paid $50 million a year. You get private jet, you get a penthouse suite, you get to live the most absolute amazing life you can live. All you got to do is one time a year circumcise and then suck a baby. How many of you would do that? How many of you could do that job? Even if it was only once. These guys, they go into the job knowing that that's going to be their only job. That's all they do. They go around performing this disgusting fucking act. There was a report about the transmission of disease and whatnot, and they interviewed one guy, one mohel from around. There was one of like 6 or something like that, and he said, "I have performed this procedure thousands of times and never transferred any sort of diseases." Thousands. He's had thousands. He thinks this. When I tell you they're stupid, this is a prime example. This is an example of them thinking the narrative that they give makes them look good. When the normal person goes, wait, you've done this thousands of times. You've had thousands of bloody baby junk in your mouth. That's horrible. I don't care what thing you believe in, what God, what anything you believe in, that is wrong. How do we as a society allow that to exist? That is wrong. And think about it. Everybody that's on here that's mad, I guess they're okay with it. They like that. They're like, no. Cut and suck. That's how you do it. That's good. All these people are mad at me for talking about the truth. It's the truth in it. It's just harsh. I'm not sugarcoating anything, but it's all true. There's no misconception here. I'm not misunderstanding something. I'm not, this is exactly what it is. And I don't understand why, I don't understand why we're okay with it. Why would any of you be okay with it? You're probably the same people that are okay with Hollywood. Probably the same people that are okay with the government. But that's not how this works, is it? I'm not going to get anybody that's actually smart enough to tell me what I'm missing, so. The Maccabee Revolt, that's why you celebrate Hanukkah. It's all about cutting and sucking. Fucking gross, man. I can't imagine wanting to believe in something that's a requirement. Again, it's like, hey, come join our cult. Like, oh, what do you have to offer? Oh, well, you get a nice house and you get some money and you get to live a really good life. You get some power, you get all that stuff. Yeah, well, what are we talking about here? Well, you gotta cut and suck. What? Why? What? What kind of sick fuck goes into the job knowing that's all you do? Like, at what age do you go, you know what I want to do? That's it. I want to be a mohel. Oh, well, we come from a long line of mohels. Your uncle was a mohel. Like, what the fuck? I don't get it. If it was, I wouldn't care who it is. Christians, if it was Christians doing it, I'd call that out. I call out the Christian practice of doing it. I think it's horrible, but it's different horrible. We're talking about the same people committing genocide right now. Their appreciation of life it doesn't seem to be, it seems very selfish and self-motivated and not very inclusive. And I just, again, I sit here and I do this every day. And I put this out here asking people, you know, what do you what do you think? What do you enjoy this? You think all this is okay? You think this is right? And the same weird pedos that come in here every day, never denying being pedos, all they do is talk shit. Like they're basically, you know, if you're not denying it, if you're not denouncing it, if you're not saying this is horrible, I want nothing to do with it, then you're accepting it. When they say, you know, if you don't stand for something, you stand for nothing. No, that's not it. If you don't stand for something, you stand against the thing that you stand for or that you should stand for. You know, if I'm not sitting there calling you out and letting you fucking continue to be a piece of shit, well, I'm cool with you being a piece of shit. We need to fix all this. And the day that there's somebody with some actual fucking knowledge, courage and knowledge that can come in here and explain what I'm missing, oh man, I'd love to hear it. But courage and knowledge go hand in hand. And if you don't have one, you don't have the other. And clearly these bots, these typical dumb J's in the comments, they lack the courage because they don't have the knowledge. When I know more about your stupid shit than you do, that's a problem. And I give you the warning. I give you the heads up. Go check this out. I'm going to talk about this shit. I said it yesterday. Go learn about Hanukkah. I'm going to talk about it. Apparently nobody took the advice. Yep, it must be because I'm high. If getting high meant everybody would think cutting and sucking babies is gross, then, man, let's get everyone high, because that's fucking gross, you fucking weirdos. And you see how everything they say just digs the hole deeper. You know? When you're not sitting here saying, fuck yeah, man, that shit's disgusting, we need to do something about it. What can we do to fix that situation? You're a part of the problem. So, I hope you enjoyed my last video is at 45, part 45, which worked out really well, surprisingly. And we'll see you for part 46, hopefully. As long as the world doesn't end, right? Dun, dun, dun. You know, I'm all about Merry Christmas. I love Christmas. Just not the religious aspect. I love the idea of everyone just being happier and being nicer to each other and, you know, taking care of each other and looking out for each other, because it goes away. It's sad when it goes away. But Christmas is great. So Merry Christmas. I hope you enjoy it with your families, and I hope you do a lot of cool shit, and hopefully you get something you appreciate. Whether it's something you like or not, I hope you appreciate it, because somebody did something for you, and that's all that should matter. And of course, as always, as the best Christmas present we could get, as a birthmas present, you know, let's eliminate this J conspiracy and help these people that are being genocided. I don't know what that word is, but victims of genocide. We need to stop that now. Now. Anything that you have, all your problems and all your wishes and goals and hopes and all that shit, it pales in comparison to those people just being allowed to live and not have to worry about these psychopathic Jays not just killing them, but kidnapping them and raping them and just violating them on so many levels. They're horrible. The stories that are coming out are horrible. And if you don't know, it's because you don't want to. It's just that simple. So, as always, have a great day. And you pedophiles, kill yourself.